to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene, and hello, Zoom friends. We're glad you're with us today. Yes. We have Ember, our ministerial intern, keeping you company, and our tech team will drop a few documents into the chat, the order of service, the visitor form, stuff like that. My name is Molly Mae Culligan, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm your your worship associate. I know, well, I'm a little off today because I ran out of shampoo, so I had to use the Old Spice. So I keep smelling myself. So it's thrown me off. I am tall, I am a woman, and I'm wearing flowers. I have flowers in my ears, and just a sec. Woo, flowers. Which is a visual reminder that you can sign up to bring bouquets. For right there. So today, our Committee on Right Relations will lead us in an exploration of conflict, something that can be uncomfortable but is also essential for growth. As part of UUCE's year-long visioning process, we held up a mirror to ourselves, and we have seen both our strengths and the places where we are still learning. In the church-wide survey, over 60% of us said that we need more skill and capacity around conflict and healthy communication and healthy behaviors. In a world that calls for radical transformation of relationships with self, society, and institutions, may we find the courage to speak with bravest fire. So I asked Liz, who is an amazing duck fan, to light the chalice, our symbol of the Unitarian Universalist faith, as I share these words from Grace White, author of Committed to Using the Logic of Love. Conflict is only negative if we fail to learn from it. Otherwise, conflict is a part of life, and experiencing it and learning how we contributed to it or how we failed to avoid it helps us grow into lovely, old, and wise people. And little kids too, because they're really good when it comes to conflict. So, and now let's say together the words of our mission, which affirm our shared purpose. Empowered by love, we transform ourselves and serve our world.
Good morning, beloved community. My name is Suzanne Reynolds. My pronouns are she and her. I'm an elder white lady with long gray hair, and I'm mostly wearing blue. I'm here today as a member of the Committee on Right Relations. Our service is about relationships and conflict and what we can do to maintain those relationships well in our beloved community and elsewhere in our lives. The conflicts that come up in our community are not a problem. It is what we do with those conflicts that matter. Also, it is an understatement to say that we do not have a good model for dealing with conflict in our culture. Our present government, for instance, wants to take revenge on anyone who disagrees with them. Name calling and put downs are common, very common. The level of acrimony and small-mindedness makes my blood boil. And I think I speak for many of us when I say that we have spent a lot of time in stress, fear, and anger. It's a rough time. And it makes our need to be part of our beloved community all the more important. Even before all the cracks in our culture started showing up so starkly. It was not easy to be in relationship. This has been true forever. We are humans. We do not always respond to conflict in that perfect way that would make it all better. Our feelings get hurt. People seem unreasonable. Perhaps there is a history that we do not understand, or that they do not understand about us. The words of Leonard Cohen's song, Anthem, keep coming up to mind when I think about the conflict in our world, both personal and political. Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. That's how the light gets in. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. My name is Robin Sean Smallford. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a tall man with long hair and a beard, wearing a blue striped shirt and blue jeans. I'm a little rounder in the middle than I'd care to be, but that's a reflection for another Sunday. And I am also a member of the Committee on Right Relations. I want to read with you our congregational covenant. Can't say the word, but I know what it means. Our congregational covenant is an agreement of how we can be in beloved community together. As a beloved community empowered by love, we covenant to embrace the next person who is always arriving, open to the change they will bring. We covenant to trust others in their identity and truth and work to be trustworthy. We covenant to speak our truth bravely and gently as we commune in love and peace. We covenant to make efforts to understand the views of others and make amends when intentions and impact collide. We covenant to expand our connections with the larger community with humility and empathy. And we covenant to remember that how we are with each other is the foundation upon which we build the beloved community. When I read this, I can't help but think, yes, I agree wholeheartedly, 5 stars, no notes. Why can't we have this posted in government buildings? No offense to the 10 Commandments, I'm sure there's some good stuff there. I've been reflecting on this covenant in conjunction with this month's spiritual theme of inclusion. We go over this when we welcome new members, and you can find it on our church website, UUCE.org. It's on the About page, but I think it bears mentioning a little more often. We covenant to make efforts to understand the views of others and make amends when intentions and impact collide. This is what CORE is for. CORE stands for the Committee on Right Relations. When you put people together, there will inevitably be conflict of one sort or another. CORE exists to help us navigate those conflicts. You can, of course, reach out to any of us on CORE, myself, Jennifer, Suzanne, and Bob, on any given Sunday. You can also send us an email if you'd like our help in navigating conflict. That's what we're here for. We covenant to embrace the next person who is always arriving, open to the change they will bring. I've been a greeter for many years. If you didn't know this, it's probably your first time here. I love it. It's what feeds my spirit during the week. To me, greeting is part of creating the sacred space, which is how I worship. It's important to me that everyone feels welcome, and I really do mean everyone. It's easy to embrace the 200 familiar faces that we see, but we need to get more comfortable welcoming those who walk through our doors because they need something that we might take for granted: community, sanctuary, hope, truth, liberal religion. I have a tendency to want to solve the world's problems with one conversation or one 3-minute reflection, but change is a process, and sometimes even conflict can lead to building the beloved community.
Good morning. My name is Bob Sorentz. I'm a member of CORE, a member of this congregation. My pronouns are he and him, and physical characteristics include a closely shaved head. I'm wearing a blue cardigan and a white shirt. I'm Asian American of Filipino descent. And I'm here to talk with you a little bit about the covenant of right relations. And to me, it's one way that we embody our church's desire to make beloved community real. We view conflict in human relations as expected. It's normal and a regular occurrence when humans interact. What beloved community seeks is a contrast to what we often see when people struggle over resources, time, territory, inclusion, or values. Instead of the outcome of one side prevailing over the other and the other side losing, instead of the stronger party exercising power over the weaker, instead of drowning out the voices of those aggrieved, a beloved community envisions a journey, an arduous journey of deep listening, of seeking mutual understanding, of mutual accountability, of shared power and enduring relationships. Beloved community is therefore a lofty vision. Beloved community can occur when conflict takes place within the boundaries of mutual respect, common and shared vulnerability, the expectation of direct discourse and good faith intention, predictable processes, and the goal of enduring relationships. And so to give an example of what this can look like, we have a skit. It's about a father and son who disagree over what, of course, political views. We want you to listen for respectful disagreement, for direct communication, to identify when parties find common ground and what the parties do to preserve the relationship. Though the conflicts we may experience in our relationships here at the UU Church in Eugene may not necessarily be political, the way this father and son work through their differences can be an example of the manner in which we resolve conflict in our community. And when we resolve conflict in such a way, we can indeed say that conflict is good. So in this skit, I'll play the role of the father, and Robin will play the role of the son. And after that, we're going to give you an opportunity to share what you've observed. We'll come around with some mics and you'll share with us. So look forward to that. Hello, son. I see you're putting together a play set for your daughter.
Your timing is perfect. Can you give me a hand, Dad, and hold this level so I can set this post to plumb?
Sure, this looks like a fun project. How's it going so far?
Not too bad. I should have most of it wrapped up today. Thanks for jumping in.
No worries. I'm glad to help, and it gives us a chance to hang out.
Right? We haven't talked much since the Trump inauguration. I can imagine you're not too happy with these first few weeks of the new administration.
There is a huge part of me that would rather not talk about it. I don't have too much ground, or we don't have too much ground on the Cheeto head.
Making fun of the President of the United States of America, the leader of the free world, probably isn't a good way to get the conversation started. But okay, orange isn't usually what we conceive when we think of people of color. Nevertheless, what Trump and Musk have been doing for a little over a month is a bit of alchemy, and I'm very curious to see how this turns out.
Well, you make it sound like what's happening is entertainment or sport. The flurry of the president's executive orders and the actions of DOJ are not only upending the livelihoods of federal workers, halting the funding and essential work of federal agencies, disrupting foreign aid for humanitarian work, challenging judicial rulings, and making a mockery of the separation of the powers of the three branches of our government, and sowing chaos and confusion. And don't even get me started about Gaza and Ukraine. Well, what really hits home for me are the friends I've met and worked with through the years who are undocumented or unauthorized migrants who came to the U.S. Simply seeking a better life for their family and themselves. These are hardworking people and honest folks. They often do low-wage jobs that most Americans wouldn't do, and they work in agriculture in the service sector. Their children don't even know any other place as home except for the U.S., and now they live their lives in fear. I can't get their faces out of my head. And I worry about them being locked up in concentration camps while they await deportation. Deporting tens of millions of people seems so cruel and unnecessary, when what is really needed is comprehensive reform and a pathway to citizenship.
I get that many of these people are your friends, but we can't just have open borders and let the whole world flood into our country. We can't even solve the problems of homeless Americans, let alone trying to help people fleeing countries that lack economic opportunity or are rife with violent conflict. Joe Biden had the opportunity to make things better, and the Democrats squandered the chance to solve the problem of illegal immigration. The Trump administration is what the plurality of voters elected this past November, and the left has no one to blame but themselves. Biden waited way too long to step out of the race, and Kamala couldn't garner the enthusiasm of enough voters. You know, this is the first election I voted for Republicans. I feel like the Democrats haven't really done enough to address the concerns of my generation. People are sick of the system, not working for them. Whether or not Trump is an honorable or moral person, he's willing to crash the whole system and remake it better, like no one before him. Many people think we need that kind of disruption to get the government out of our lives, root out corruption, and make America free and prosperous again.
Okay. Well, I agree with you, and so do people like Bernie Sanders and Trump, that the system is rigged and doesn't work for most people. The question is, who is rigging the system and who benefits from that setup?
The right claims it's the deep state, meaning the more than 3 million rank-and-file federal workers, plus elected representatives supported by corrupt corporations. And the deep state is supported by the radical left-wing liberal media, whose bias is rooted in woke liberal academia.
Yeah, well, the left says that the root of corruption and system rigging is at the hands of and for the benefit of the wealthy billionaire class, represented by the three richest men in the country who own more than the bottom 50% of the nation. Furthermore, it's these same right-wing extremists who now control the most prolific social media channels and spread disinformation, misinformation, and conspiracy theories with the goal of sowing distrust and in reputable institutions.
If we both think the system is rigged, then our differences are centered in where we get our information and how we discern truth.
Well, yeah, and who controls the information we receive, and how do we check our biases? Our differences often stem from one's theory of knowledge, or how do you know what you know? And I like the amorphism of Rufus Miles: where you stand depends on where you sit.
From where my generation sits, it feels like all the emphasis is placed on a college degree and which has left many with tens of thousands of dollars of debt, jobs that don't pay enough, housing that is far from affordable, and the so-called American dream so far out of reach.
I get it. And it's no wonder people in your situation feel like the system is rigged. My generation had much more federal financial support for higher education, and the cost of housing was significantly less when your mom and I got our first home.
Yep, it sucks. Hey, set this level so I can attach the support. You know, a lot of families can't have conversations like this without severing ties and distancing themselves.
I feel fortunate. For the most part, you and I try to detach our differences from judgments about each other. There's a saying in the UU tradition, we don't have to think alike to love alike. And I appreciate that you and I have very different theories about the root causes of major problems of our times.
It's very easy to think ill of others who disagree with you when it feels like there's so much at stake. The so-called culture wars prevent people from having deeper conversations about the roots of our beliefs and what we value.
And I think if you dig deep enough, we would find we have very similar values. We all want to be happy, to thrive, and live in peace. But what often separates us is when we believe others threaten our happiness or way of life.
It helps to live with differences when we work on trusting each other, finding common ground, and looking for the things we can appreciate about the other.
I appreciate how hard you work to support your young family and how talented you are in so many ways.
You've always been there for me, Dad. I know I can count on you. Thanks for helping me today.
I'm glad to be here. Maybe one day our worldviews will be more aligned.
One can only hope.
So now we have a little opportunity for you to give us some feedback on what you learned. So, CORE is about helping all of us learn. So we're going to walk around with some microphones, and there's some questions that we're going to ask of you. You just raise your hand, and we'll just come out there, and you can share. So the first question is, what were the differences? What were the differences that the Father and Son expressed? You want to go ahead, Bob? Go ahead.
Sure. So they were expressing differences in the origin of some of the differences that they had. I mean, some of the things they didn't like about the government, and but the main thing I wanted to say also was that they were not trying to convince each other to change their views. Mm-hmm. They were willing to listen to each other's views and accept the fact that they were different.
Very good. Somebody else, what else did you hear? What differences did you hear? Right there.
Generational differences, for sure.
Yes. Another in the back on that side. Go ahead at the back over here. Yes.
They were both very articulate and well-informed. And in a lot of conflicts, that is not the case.
Okay. We'll take one more on this question. Yes, sir?
Well, sort of the source of their difference, one of them blamed the deep state, federal employees, government employees, and the other one blamed the oligarchy. And they didn't seem to merge on that.
Yeah. We'll take one more and then we'll move to the next question.
They respectfully disagreed, so when somebody said something that the other found outrageous, they didn't get triggered.
Okay. We're going to move on to the next question. So conflict is challenging, right? What made you uncomfortable about the conversation? What made you uncomfortable about their conversation? Right here in front, in the middle.
I think I want to jump on what you just said a moment ago, which is how sort of respectfully they disagreed, and also what was said a moment ago about how like well-informed they both were, and how unlike most of the political conflict that I see in the world that was. And so it just sort of felt like watching a conflict unfold in a really ideal way that felt really foreign to me. And that was uncomfortable, right? It was uncomfortable to see this thing that's like, oh wow, it would be really nice if it could be this way, and how unlike what I see in the world that really is. And if I'm sorry, I don't mean to take too much time, but the thing that kept coming back to me as I was thinking about that was this line that I've seen in internet spaces and other spaces a lot, which is, I respect your right to disagree as long as you respect my right to exist. And it felt like these two characters were close enough to each other and respectful enough of one another's right to exist that they were able to maybe have this conversation, where I think in a lot of our spaces it becomes really hard to accept somebody's right to disagree with us when what they're saying is you as a person are illegitimate, or you as a person don't get to be.
Yes, yes, thank you. Was there one more comment in the front over here on that? Okay, I've got a, we'll kind of wrap this up. So,
I've got one thing that was difficult, was pretending to have these views.
yes. What, okay, so then where did they find common ground? What did you see where they found common ground? I see, is that Nikki over there in the back? And then in the front, yes, over here, sir. Go ahead.
They put family over ideology. They accepted that even though father and son may see the world very differently, they are still blood, and they're still working together to build grandbaby's playset or dollhouse or which it was. And we can all have our own views about how the world ought to be, but family first, always. And that was something that really struck me from that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And then in the middle, back that way. There you go. And then do we have somebody on this side who's waiting? Oh, I see you going. Okay, we'll take this comment in the back there. Oh, it's Nikki over here. There you go. You're second. Oh, sorry.
Well, I thought what was interesting and moving is that each party at the end valued the conversation itself. Even though there was disagreement, they were happy that they were able to actually disagree, have that conversation at all, as opposed to having it and being, feeling awful or not having it. So they engaged in the conflict, but they felt good about each other still, just for being able to say what they needed to say.
Thank you.
I think the main thing I noticed was that they both agreed that the system is broken. And it was just why it was broken that differed. And I have the same conversation with my family, who's very conservative and all voted for Trump. Everyone believes it's broken. It's just a matter of why it's broken that's different.
Yeah. Yes. I have one final question, and so what is it that allowed the two to preserve their relationship? So how were they able to preserve the relationship? And I see a couple of hands in front, and we're getting around to the back, and that'll be our last question, and we'll move on.
So I just wanted to add that one thing that they were able to acknowledge was their lived experiences were different. You know, that one had grown up with federal support and cheaper housing. And so I think recognizing each other's reality of what the challenges they're each facing helped bring them together.
Thank you. I see a hand over here and then a couple hands over here. Oh,
And Bob, we do have a few very brief
Oh.
things from Zoom that I can read when you get done with
why don't you
this
go with
question.
that while we're walking the mics down? Go ahead. We'll take that.
Alrighty, so we have, they both had some sense of political terms from the other side. They both were dissatisfied. They found a place of commonality, and genetically, we were all family.
Okay.
They didn't cast judgment on each other. They didn't cast, I'm going to say the wrong word, dispersion on each other. They listened.
The thing that I noticed, the common ground and common line, like thread of connection that they held, and was that it seemed that they put their beliefs aside, they recognized the beliefs as beliefs, and upheld their own dignity and humanity by saying, you are a father, I appreciate what you do for your family, and you are my father. So just like recognizing the humanness of each other before beliefs as beliefs. I think that was beautiful.
Thank you.
I think one thing that I noticed, or two things, was that they started the conversation and ended the conversation with unconditional love for each other and respect.
Absent was the problem of power. This was not a power struggle. And maybe that's something to think about.
Yeah. It actually makes conflict more challenging when there is this sense of imbalance of power. Thank you, Augie. And then we're going to wrap up with this comment. Oh, we got one back there and then one. Okay.
They did not interrupt one another. There you go.
I think you've all said it. They were communicating much by listening and loving each other and listening.
I felt like this wasn't their first conversation, that they didn't have to do the early things of saying, well, I think I hear you, am I hearing you say? This was a conversation in the middle. They had not given up on each other before, so they were able to keep talking and presumably keep growing in their relationship.
Duena, did you? Oh, I see, okay. Thank you all so much. What I really appreciate about your comments is you recognize that we are a learning community, and the things that we talked about, or you all shared, it really embodies what we're trying to do with CORE. And I also will say that what we see as CORE is really an experiment. There are really not too many other churches or organizations that actually have, as a part of their organization, this group that wants to move conflict resolution forward. Thank you for participating in that. And I just wanted to say one thing. This conversation is actually based on conversations I have with my son. And it just really touched my heart that you felt those things, and I'm so proud of our relationship, but we've worked really hard on it. And it also, I believe, that our congregation has that same commitment to work hard at being family, about being beloved community. And of course, many of the conflicts we have with those in our beloved community may not be as candid or direct as we witnessed. Yet what we want to model through the work of CORE in our church is the willingness to have difficult conversations, to be honest about those moments when our intentions do not match the impact of our behaviors, when our words unintentionally harm others. It is our aspiration that our journey as a beloved community encourages us to be our authentic selves, hold space for our differences, work through conflict with respect, forgiveness, and grace, and model to the world inclusive relationships which stand the test of time. Thank you for your role in our beloved community and helping us to know the goodness of conflict.
Okay. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in love, my friends.